Have you ever found yourself believing that if you only embark in these big heroic tasks, these grandstand type of actions, that they would somehow catapult you into a different kind of life and sever the cord with the things that keep you feeling like you're stuck or unable to transform or resolve your trauma? This channel is Meditation Amsterdam. My name is Pablo, and today we get to talk about how heroics and big asceticism is not what we would call skillful means, and therefore fail to transform you, usually fail to transform you at the deepest level. Before I start, I'm filming this one in a different place than normal. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. You might hear it in my voice. I had the worst transatlantic flight of my life, only to be diagnosed with COVID-19 as soon as I landed. So I'm actually quarantined here in the room on December 24th. I'm well medicated, very well fed, and I'm keeping no contact with my family, but I'm definitely well taken care of. And I was going to make a video about some of this ordeal that I went through during the flight, which was pretty bad actually, but I thought it would be just a bit lame, and it didn't inspire me. Every day I try to find a fresh something that really gets me inspired to share, and when you are doing nothing but meditating and checking out social media in your room, you inevitably come across something, and I surely did a few minutes ago. It was a guy who put himself through 365 days of ice baths, which looked absolutely grueling. And much kudos to him, and also to his candor and his honesty at the end of the video, where he says that most of the motivating things that he was sharing on social media were mostly as a motivation for himself. And I could totally relate to that. The reason I started this channel was to try and document my own journey and share the insights that came along. But then he said something very revealing and very sad, actually, which is, he said, "I know that this has somehow done something for my trauma, and even though I will always be in pain," and then he continued on to say something else. And to me, that is an absolute tragedy. It is the classic situation of not using what we call skillful means to resolve what's really holding you back and achieve the transformation that you wanted in the first place. And how many of us have found ourselves doing something like that? It is said that even the Buddha himself tried asceticism for quite a few years. The stories go that he was eating a single grain of rice every day. And he was almost on his deathbed when he realized that this was simply not having the transformative effect that he was looking for. It was just not working, essentially. Was going to kill him. And he then stopped with asceticism and came up with his own method. And sure enough, as soon as he did, results came. You could argue that asceticism did give him a lot of resolve and stamina, certainly mentally. But as a pure means to transforming is extremely poor and masochistic. So it's understandable that we try that route. It's a very hero's journey, egoic type of thing to attempt. This idea of surmounting, of overcoming, of making a grand stand against life, and then movies reinforce this kind of the epic narrative, the narrative in which, as that voice would say, one man, right, faces against all odds, this and that. There is a decisive moment, and then the resolution comes. But of course, the movie ends there. And in the case of life, it doesn't matter how big a stand you make for this or that. Life actually eats at you because it's so damn long and boring sometimes. That's the thing, the heroic part in life is not to have that dullness make you want to crawl out of your skin. Instead of going from all these peak experiences, difficult as they may be, very often we will put ourselves through those to avoid the dullness and the pain and the very things that we are not willing to face. In other words, we would rather torture the body than feel the pain of the heart. And therefore, you have to become discerning of what skillful means actually are. You need to understand what are the processes by which your neurology and your psychosomatics transform over time. What is insight type meditation? What is concentration training? How does trauma resolution work in your psychosomatics? What is the correct breath work that leads for your energetics to become more open and vibrant? Those are elements that over time transform you. And the only heroic element involved in it really is to stick to your practices and do them to the best of your abilities every day, without having to go into these big heroic moments that could end up hurting you. Here in the channel, I have a little section about Vipassana when I went to a 10-day retreat, out of which I came very weirded out and depersonalized. My energetics were flaring up all over the place because of such poor instruction that one receives in those retreats. And I've never been back to any of those. I would not recommend that anyone goes to these things, to be honest. I would not discount retreat as a good vehicle, by the way, for transformation. There's definitely a place for that. But the takeaway from this is more around, it's not about one big ta-da moment. It's about a daily approach of cultivation. That's why it's called cultivation. It goes with the grain of nature, with the seasons, with the time. And when things are ready to sprout, they sprout. When they are ready to bloom, they bloom. And our job is to keep the soil as prepared as possible for those seeds of pain to eventually become the very openings in our psychosomatics that allow us to touch part of ourselves that we would otherwise not even know exist. If we hijack that process by engaging in practices or doing big heroic type of activities, those activities tend to, either by their nature, their duration, or their intensity, especially their intensity, they add more static to the system. Your clarity to feel becomes lower rather than higher. Chances are when you're doing that, you just want to be somewhere else, or you put up with it. But it's such a high intensity endeavor that there's a question of whether you can process that. We talked in previous videos this week about your ability to digest life, to process experience, to metabolize it. And that is an ability that grows progressively. Eventually, if you do that, for example, with little cold showers or just fresh, and then you turn the water a little bit cold and you want to train your body to just handle discomfort a little bit better, that's fine. If you go into full-on ice baths, your adrenals are going to go all over the place, because what you're essentially doing is you're pumping your system full of adrenaline on a systematic basis, which is completely unnatural. So these are things to consider. We are not meant to be shocked all the time. We are meant to carry on a progressive stress load that gets carried and that your neurology can process and therefore transform. So I hope that's informative as usual. Curious to hear what you have to say in the comment section. And if you think that this information is helpful to others, then liking, subscribing, and sharing makes it ever more available, and it's also very motivating to me. I'm wishing you all happy holidays. I hope that you are safe. I hope that you're in good company. And as usual, I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. And until then, cheerio and bye-bye.